Without further ado, I would like to introduce Maria Mecenero. She's a policy officer in the Directorate General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission, and she's working in the team focused on research careers, mostly focused on improving conditions of researchers across the European Union, advancing the work that is being undertaken at the level of the European competence frameworks, both for research and research managers. So welcome, Maria. Thank you very much for joining. Pleasure to have you here and really eager to hear your contributions to the webinar.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for having organized the webinar. I share your comments on the importance of creating a network and creating platforms to knowledge share and bring people together. So I'm really happy that I can bring my contribution today. So as you mentioned, I will be talking about ResearchComp and RMComp, which are the two competence frameworks that we have at the European Union level for researchers and for research managers. So researchers have been at the center of the public discourse more than usual in the past couple of years. I'm sure that most of you heard of the Letta report on the importance of building a fifth freedom of the market, so the circulation of research, innovation, and technology. The drug report, the launch of the Choose Europe for Science initiative, the announcement of the ERA Act, the legislative act that is basically going to fill in the gaps also for to make sure that a true Europe research area and a true fifth freedom are established in the European Union, and the launch of the new European policy, European research area policy agenda, which kind of builds or aims to build the same European research area and the same fifth freedom that I just mentioned. So, I mean, usually there's not researchers are not, unfortunately, so much at the center of the public discourse and not the policy discourse at the European Union level. So let's say that what we're trying to do now at the level of the European Commission, I mean, I work in the Directorate General for Research and Innovation, is to really make sure that this is not only a moment and that we can build really something that would support researchers' careers and the careers of research managers. So why are we doing that? Also because researchers in the EU are many. These are the latest data from Eurostat in 2024. Usually, I mean, this is the first time I present this new data because they just came out. I mean, until the last presentation, I said that there were 2 million researchers in the EU. So we have a big increase. And let's say that also the rate of the increase keeps on raising, because I mean, before it was 44%, if I'm not wrong, now it's already 47.3% since 2014. So researchers are a category that keeps growing, and that represents, as you can see in the slide, a lot of different sectors. So the business sector, the academic, the government, and a little bit more than 1% of the total labor force in the EU, and it's also increasing at a much higher rate than our competitors too. And so this is a category of people, of citizens that we always need to take into consideration when building policy and making policies. So researchers, as you know very well, face challenges that, of course, are not all included in this slide, but that's, we can say, we try to categorize and we try to identify before making policies and before thinking about what we can do for them. And of course, the main challenges that they face go from precarious conditions based on their project-based contracts, the fact that they sometimes don't know their competencies and how transversal their competencies are, so how much they can apply their research or research management competencies in other sectors that are not academia, for example, and that brings them to the inability to kind of work across sectors and to seize opportunities that present to them in the labor market, to create their own business, to venture into entrepreneurship. And I think that's also thinking about the focus of your project, which is knowledge valorization. This is particularly important. And so these might bring them to think that they don't have a good match in terms of competencies with the skills that are requested by the labor market. And sometimes this is not even true. This is just a question of not being fully aware. And sometimes this is true, but there are no ways of really filling the gaps. So one of the things that one of the tools, let's say, that we have built at the Commission level to try to bridge this gap and overcome the challenges that I just presented is ResearchComp. As I said, ResearchComp is the European competence framework for researchers. But I mean, I'm sorry if amongst you there are people that maybe know very well what ResearchComp is. I'm just gonna try to give a short overview for those that don't know, and I hope that I'm not repeating myself too much. So ResearchComp is a framework that includes 7 competence areas, as you can see here, from doing research to working with others to managing research, making an impact, etc. So under these 7 competencies areas, there are 39 competencies that are described, of course. This is just the first page, let's say, of the PDF that you see here. If you scan the QR code, you can go to the full PDF that basically describes the 39 competencies in detail under the 7 competencies areas. So there are a couple of things to consider here. That are mainly, let's say, the drivers of our building of ResearchComp. That is, all competencies are equally important and they are interrelated. So there's no hierarchy of competencies and no hierarchy of competencies areas. The competence can be acquired, of course, through training, on the job training, in academic training, let's say, peer-to-peer learning, coaching, mentoring, etc. And we will see later that some universities are already using ResearchComp to provide mentorship in mentorship programs, let's say, or to provide coaching. It can be used by different types of people. So, of course, by researchers and research managers, but also employees in academia, in the private sector. It can be used by employers, and it can be used in different ways as a starting point to assess the competence level, let's say, or to address is your need to kind of to understand your level in some of the competencies, whether it is because you saw a vacancy and you want to make sure that you have the competencies that are requested in the vacancy, or whether you just want to see where you stand, let's say. And this is not depending on the level of, let's say, on what kind of researchers you are. Of course, we use normally the classification from R1 to R4, but I mean, let's say from a more early career or junior researchers to a more senior researcher. And I mean, of course, a researcher, and then we see later also with RMComp, which is the framework for research managers, is encouraged to develop competencies in all of the 7 areas, but that doesn't mean that a researcher is to be defined, a complete researcher, let's say, in very simple terms, should have a full proficiency in all of these competencies or under all of the 7 competencies area. It can vary. It depends on the focus. It depends on the role. It depends on the employment. And we'll see also with research managers, it is the same. So how do you how can you assess the proficiency level? Each of the competencies is described with 4 proficiency levels going from foundational to expert. You can see here, let's say, descriptors for all of the proficiency levels, and for all of them, basically, it is described through bullet points. What does it mean to be, for example, an expert in one of the 39 competencies identified? So this is the overall structure, 7 competencies area, under which there are 39 competencies that are described, 4 proficiency levels for each competence, and so 406 learning outcomes. What do I mean by learning outcomes? Is literally the bullet points describing what does it mean to have a foundational or intermediate level in one of the competencies. So if you want to have a very clear idea of what does this mean in concrete terms, I invite you to go either through the QR code or just to Google ResearchComp. You will find your way there to go through the PDF and to have a look. So RMComp is very similar, as you can see already visually, to ResearchComp. ResearchComp was developed and launched in 2023, whereas RMComp is a bit more recent, is barely 1 year old. So we always call it the little sister of ResearchComp. And I mean, it's structured more or less in the same ways. It has 50 competencies, so it's a little bit more extensive. And again, a 7 competencies area The considerations that you see here in the slide are more or less the same as the one that I already presented to you, because the rationale and the reasoning behind the development of ResearchComp was very similar. Also because we know that there's an overlap between the two audiences, and the people that might use one or the other sometimes are the same. Sometimes research managers, of course, become managers after being researchers, or like they change the scope or the area in which they work. So we want to make sure that this is intuitive for a ResearchComp user to pass to RMComp and vice versa. So this is why more or less you see the similarities. I also wanted to give you an idea of what are the practical applications that we have already seen of ResearchComp and RMComp. So now you know the structure, and now you know how more or less it is. And I would like you to know also how it can be used to give you a more concrete idea of what is the benefit of also using ResearchComp. So we have a couple of examples here. One of the first universities that have started using ResearchComp is Charles University in Prague. They are using it as an added value for the university because they use the ResearchComp terminology to develop training workshop for postdocs and PhD candidates that are based on ResearchComp. They use it to identify common topics for this mentor-mentee program that I was mentioning also before. In this program for postdocs, they are incorporating ResearchComp into their career development plan templates for postdocs. And so they are using it in many different ways. Why? Because it creates common knowledge, a common language, and let's say an homogeneous way of defining competencies for all, not only for students, but also for academic staff, and also for future employers, and for programs, as I said, for coaching, etc. So for students, it's also very beneficial because they can connect with other students and researchers across Europe. So students, I mean, and also extending to PhD candidate, to postdocs, but also for students in the university, because they basically can speak to other peers using the same languages, so the same ways of defining competencies, which is, of course, sometimes a problem. Another example is by Politecnico of Turin in Italy. ResearchComp has been helping researchers become aware of their competencies and to fill the gap in case they find a gap in competencies. As you can see here, there are some examples. Politecnico is using ResearchComp in their training platforms. They have developed a self-assessment tool specific to, let's say, the platforms that they use, and they also are organizing and implementing workshops. I just heard from my contact in Politecnico, and she just told me that they have organized a second workshop, so it's been going well. But for the sake of time, I will go to the latest news. So what we have been working on concerning ResearchComp is that we updated ResearchComp very recently, last October, with one new competence. Before they were 38, and now they're 39. And the new competence is called the leverage of artificial intelligence. It's based also on the artificial intelligence competence that was already in RMComp. And it was announced as part of the AI in Science strategy presented by the European Commission on 8th of October 2025. And we have launched a self-assessment tool that is a free-to-use online tool based on ResearchComp, including a multiple choice questionnaire that is structured according to 7 competencies areas and 4 proficiency levels. Basically, the user would be able to choose what competence area they want to test and to go through a multiple choice questionnaire that basically is a bit more intuitive and user-friendly than just reading the PDF and trying to understand your level of proficiency in the different competencies. After you completed a self-assessment tool, you get results with a spider diagram, a description of strengths, gaps, breakdown per skill, and downloadable results. So we wanted basically to translate the structure of ResearchComp into a more user-friendly experience that gives clearer results of where you stand in terms of proficiency in the different competencies under ResearchComp. We are thinking about doing the same for RMComp. It's still not currently ongoing, but we are, preparing the ground for making it happen. This is a YouTube video. For the sake of time, again, maybe we don't show it. It's only 1.5 minutes, but please, if you want to have an idea of how it works, just click on the video or look for this how to use the ResearchComp self-assessment tool on YouTube, and just spend the 90 seconds of your time on this if you want to have a clear idea. We are also working with Horizon Europe and EU-funded projects that are using ResearchComp to help us, say, develop the next steps of the ResearchComp. So with cross-project, we are creating a career development companion toolkit, so that basically would take the results from the self-assessment tool and provide personalized career guidance based on the competence profile of the user. And a community of practice has been launched in December, and we already have almost 300 users, and basically it is constantly updated with the news on ResearchComp, with events, with webinars. There are going to be 4 workshops throughout 2026. So if you're really interested in ResearchComp and you want to get all of the updates, I suggest that you subscribe to this community of practice. I can send you all of the links. And we are also working in the context of research management and RMComp with this project that is called RM Framework. And basically in their work package 1, they're developing a training framework for Europe. You can see here a timeline of the activities that we're working on. And this is it. I hope that I didn't speak too long. And you can find here, I think that the presentation will be shared with you after the webinar. But in any case, I know it's a bit hidden, but you can see my contact also below. I will also share with the organizers of the webinar a functional mailbox where you can write to have clarity to answer your questions, doubts, and everything about these 2 frameworks. And I'll be here until 12 to answer your question in case. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maria. It was great hearing your explanations and your insights on what's already happening and it's already been built to support career development for research and research managers. And yes, if you have questions, if attendees have questions for Maria, they can post them on the chat of the Teams webinar, and we will have a final Q&A session.